Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Adam Lacy is a professional photographer and a carnivore with a remarkable journey to share. Adam is the host of the Carnivore Today Podcast, where he delves into the heart of the carnivore lifestyle and all things meat. By day, Adam's professional endeavors keep him busy, capturing life's incredible moments. But his commitment to the carnivore way of life is a 24/7 journey, with podcasting and filmmaking spotlighting his adventures by night. Adam's own health transformation is a cornerstone of the podcast. His success in reversing vertigo, healing a six-year-old traumatic brain injury, and overcoming depression and anxiety, all through a strict carnivore diet, is nothing short of inspiring. With over a year of dedicated carnivore living under his belt, Adam is more than just a host. He's a living testament to the diet's potential. Adam also plays a pivotal role as the assistant director of the impactful documentary Healing Humanity: The Power of a Proper Human Diet, alongside our former podcast guest, Carrie Mann, who we hosted on episode 693 of Boundless Body Radio. This project is a mission to provide hope and healing, showcasing the undeniable benefits of a carnivore diet for human health and well-being. Adam Lacy, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Well, thank you so much, Casey, for the invitation. I'm honored to be here, and I'm anxious to get right in and start talking about the carnivore diet with you.
Man, I can't wait. This is awesome. I think it's so cool to see all the ways that a carnivore diet can help somebody. And sometimes it feels like it's like a cure-all for everything. And, your counterpart, Carrie Mann, who's just an amazing human being, actually started a podcast called Carnivores Don't Get Sunburns, which I think is awesome. And it inspired me to create a new project, which is called Carnivores Don't Get Speeding Tickets. But unfortunately, I think you proved that slightly wrong, as you had to take care of a speeding ticket before we had to record today.
That is true. Guilty as charged.
Hey, happens to the best of us. We'll kill that project as proves to be not true. But I also found out a few weeks ago, my wife and I played some epic rounds of cornhole, and it was one of the sunniest days we've had here in the Salt Lake Valley. And I did get a bit of a sunburn, and my nose is a bit red. So yeah, I had to be a little bit more careful with my sun exposure. But yeah, the carnivore diet is amazing, and it's played a huge role in your own healing. So much so that you've just completely given up seemingly every single minute of your free time to work on this incredible movie, which I can't wait to talk about. But let's talk about your own health journey and how you've been able to transform some health issues that you had in the past by eventually finding a carnivore diet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the carnivore diet for vain reasons, really. I had an autoimmune condition, vitiligo, that causes you to not produce melanin in certain areas on your skin. So you'd have these white patches. And I'm somewhat tan. So, these spots started to develop in areas other than around my waist. So prior to, just before I started the carnivore diet, they were always hidden, right? So nobody could actually see them. Wasn't an issue, wasn't a problem. And then they started showing up on my arm, these spots. And I thought, you know what? I need to try to figure something out with this because I don't want it spreading, potentially on my face or whatever. It doesn't hurt. It's not painful or anything like that. It's just, simply a vanity thing. I just didn't want it showing up on my face because I didn't want that as part of the conversation when I interact with someone, right? Even though they may not think that it's a big deal, in the back of my mind, it would still be there for me psychologically. So I tried to do what I could to try to mitigate this. The treatments for this are very expensive, and I didn't have the money to do that. So I went to YouTube University and did a search. Can you reverse this? And the craziest thing, I found a video from Joe Rogan, of all people, that talked about he was reversing his vitiligo on a carnivore diet. And I'm like, what in the world is a carnivore diet? So I dove in a little bit more on the subject, did a search. I found Dante Ferrigno from Ferrigno Freedom and saw his transformation. And man, I was really inspired by seeing just what this regular guy was able to do with himself, seemingly just eating meat with a carnivore diet. And of course, I had to go deeper. Now I'm looking for actual evidence. Can you actually do this, right? And found Dr. Barry. And I'm sort of a country guy, and listening to Dr. Berry, I was thoroughly convinced by this medical doctor that I would not die if I was able to ditch the vegetables, which I always hated anyways. I could not stand eating vegetables. Now I have an excuse to not do it, right? And heal myself. So that's kind of how my journey started.
Wow, that's amazing. What was your history of dieting before you encountered all of that? And I want to go back actually. The skin condition, I'm not even fully convinced that I said it right in the introduction. It's not something I've ever heard of. Vitiligo, is that how do you pronounce
Vi-
it?
so some people pronounce it vitiligo, and some people pronounce it vitiligo. So
Okay,
I guess it's
gotcha.
just tomato, tomato.
Yeah, got it. Is it just cosmetic or is it actually painful?
It is not painful whatsoever. It's strictly cosmetic. It's a condition that I believe is kind of gets technical, but it's the melanocytes are not able to actually produce melanin. Now, don't quote me. I'm sure somebody will put in the comments that I'm not saying it right. So, but essentially, your skin isn't able to produce melanin in those areas because of this autoimmune condition.
Got it. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Back to the original question. What was your history of dieting before you ended up finding the carnivore diet?
Sure. So basically, my whole life, I did struggle with weight. Not a lot. I'm a real like super skinny guy. So
Yeah.
to have any kind of a weight, it's like I need to do something about this. So it was always yo-yoing. Doing this diet, the Atkins diet, doing Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem. I tried all these crazy things, fasting, intermittent fasting while eating a standard American diet. And, all that stuff is all essentially a starvation diet. And I didn't know that at the time, but I yo-yoed a lot, going between, 80 and 115 pounds overweight, roughly. But just prior to starting the carnivore diet, I was actually on a raw vegan diet for
Oh
two
my goodness.
years. Yeah. So just for a little bit of context for people, this vitiligo had been around for 6 years roughly. Okay. So this was while I was eating standard American diet, doing all these other crazy diets. Um, I started 2 years prior to the carnivore diet, a raw vegan diet, but I did that. I didn't do it for ethical reasons. I did it because my friend and business partner had prostate cancer. And a friend of his survived prostate cancer 17 years earlier by going on this raw vegan protocol. And he believed that this is what was going to help him, cure his cancer. So, in solidarity with him, I decided to, do this raw vegan diet, even though I absolutely hate vegetables. If I ate vegetables, I would have to put butter on them or throw some bacon grease in there or some kind of animal product just to stomach it. But to eat them raw, that was just a whole next level thing, right? But I did it, and his cancer went into remission. But since then, it's come back. But during that 2 years of eating that raw vegan diet, my vitiligo actually started to spread from around my waist where it was hidden to on my arms. And now, can I say that the vegan diet was what did it? I don't know, but it wasn't getting worse the 4 years prior, and then now all of a sudden it's starting to get worse. And I'm seeing these spots on my arms. Eating a vegan diet. So and then I switched over to the carnivore diet, and that was that's the last diet or lifestyle that I'll be on.
Yeah. Wow. So it completely cleared up at that point.
It didn't clear up, but it started to reverse itself. I noticed the reversal at about 5 months. There's a lot of things that sort of happened at that 5 month mark for me, anyways. But all of the other things that cleared up for me is enough for me to eat this way for life. Even if the vitiligo doesn't get better, even if it spreads, the way that I feel and the energy that I have, the things that I'm able to focus on and just live life and be present is worth more to me than how I look.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Did you notice anything else from eating a raw vegan diet? Again, it's hard to say whether that was the cause of anything, but you hear stories of people going raw vegan, And, initially it's quite helpful because they're stepping away from the standard American diet. But at some point, the honeymoon kind of ends and people end up with, digestive issues or other skin issues or mental issues. Did you notice anything else that was maybe not improving or getting worse on a raw vegan diet?
Well, one thing was I had to use the restroom like 3 times a day just because of
Yeah.
the massive amounts of fiber that I was consuming. But low energy, definitely low energy. Uh, Depression, anxiety was still there. That hadn't cleared up. Not able to really focus in terms of any physical ailments. Not so much really, just other than the vitiligo. That physical part of it was actually got worse. But yeah, bowel movements were okay, I guess by standards today. That would be like super healthy, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay. You said something else I want to touch on as well. You mentioned doing intermittent fasting, which I think is amazing and credible, but you also mentioned doing it while you were doing the standard American diet. I grew up Mormon, and every month we practice a fast, and we were eating a standard American diet. And that was by far the most miserable, worst day of the month. You didn't look forward to it at all. It was terrible when you were doing it. Can you tell us why something as amazing as intermittent fasting also depends on what you're eating, when you're eating them, why it's not the best idea to try intermittent fasting when you're on a standard American diet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I definitely looking back in hindsight, I definitely wouldn't recommend it unless you're adding other things that are going to give you an actual fuel source and help you to sustain those periods of fasting. But yeah, it was torturous, like you mentioned. Low energy, angry, hangry, attitude. Depression, anxiety got worse during those periods. Did not have the energy to do absolutely anything. And it's effectively like you're in a prison camp. It's a starvation way of doing things. And contrast that with intermittent fasting while you're a carnivore. You have this nutrient dense food, and you're consuming lots of fat. And that fat is going to carry you through that fast, and the nutrients as well. So, there's definitely there's a huge difference in intermittent fasting on a standard American diet versus a carnivore diet. And by far, it was much more pleasurable, much more sustainable, much more pleasurable, really, to do it on a carnivore diet. And while I was losing weight, I mean, it was a natural process. I wasn't even trying to do it, and I would go 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours before I'm like, man, I need to eat, right?
Yeah, very well explained. I really like that. And it's interesting you use the word pleasurable, preferable. Like it's amazing how something that is totally miserable initially on that standard American diet becomes this thing that's like you prefer it because your energy is better, your mental clarity is better. You're not wasting time cooking food, you're not spending money on food, like all these side benefits, and you just feel so much better. Like one of my clients is just starting to play with those kind of lengths of fast, 24 hours, 48 hours, and she's like, well, I feel really good, but on our session in a few days, like, how am I going to be if, I'm in the middle of this like 2 day or 3 day fast? I'm not going to have enough strength to lift. And I kept telling her, like, no, you're going to be superwoman when you do this lift. Like, you don't understand how much energy you're going to have. You're going to PR lifts in this state. And it's just all about where we're getting our energy from. And it's so interesting to contrast trying to do fasting on a standard diet versus a carnivore diet. It's totally different.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you mentioned being easier on a carnivore diet as far as food preparation. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about this because I wouldn't say I'm lazy. Maybe I am. But the simplicity of eating this way is it's a huge, huge bonus for me because I don't have time. I'm doing lots of other things. I want to spend my time doing something else, not preparing food. Interesting side note here. For my YouTube channel, I was going to do a video. I'll probably never do it. Hopefully somebody does. But here's an idea for somebody. I was going to take all of the appliances and everything that's in a kitchen, a standard American kitchen, right? Or global kitchen, whatever, like a juicer and a food processor and a blender and all of these things that you have to have in order to prepare all the multitude of foods with plants and vegetables. and I was going to line them up on the sidewalk end to end. Just take them out completely out of my kitchen, line them up, and they get a good B-roll shot, low and slow, just going by everything that now I've replaced that with a pan, a grill, a spatula, a fork, and a knife, and a cutting board, right? So, and literally that's it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that. Yeah, it's crazy. I've got my sous vide, which I love to make my steaks in. I've got my grill out back that I use to grill them up. And you're right. You use so much less stuff. You don't need the toaster. You don't need the juicer, like you said, the food processor. Simplicity is a great way to describe a carnivore diet. I love that. And also part of your story, which we mentioned in the introduction, was the traumatic brain injury. I want to kind of talk about that a little bit as well. What exactly happened, and how did that affect your life?
Yeah, so back in 2017 in February, I was working at a controls engineering position just south of Dayton, Ohio, and you have to go through Dayton in order to get to the company that I was working at. And traffic is always bad in the morning. So 7 o'clock in the morning, going down a hill on a freeway, and traffic was backed up, and it was at a complete stop, like 4 lanes wide. And I stopped, and then two other cars stopped behind me. Well, just behind those vehicles was a 53-foot semi loaded with a full load of steel, and he didn't stop for anything. The rumor is I didn't hear officially, but I think the guy was on his cell phone and wasn't paying attention.
Oh my goodness.
So the first person in line it was a fatal crash for that person. The next person in line crashed into me. He hit us with such force that me being third in line, my truck, which was a F-150 Super Crew 4x4 long bed, pretty big truck, went up the retaining wall and then came back down. And that's when I received my traumatic brain injury. I don't know what my head hit, the window, the steering wheel. I was just kind of bounced around in there, and the next thing I know, when I came to, I was in an ambulance going to the hospital at that point. So yeah, that's basically the short of how that actually happened. And the weeks and months that followed, and even years, I had many, many complications with that injury.
Oh wow, you're lucky it wasn't worse. From the sounds of it, that could have been like way worse. What were some of the effects that you were noticing from that?
The main effects that I had from it was dizziness, nausea initially, vertigo effects. So I couldn't close my eyes and stand up. I would fall over almost immediately. And I developed what was basically like a motor tic, like someone with Tourette's syndrome. So once my brain was overloaded, my head would just jerk uncontrollably. I couldn't control it. So I had a lot of these complications going on for years and years. And I went through physical therapy for 2 years, occupational therapy for 2 years, speech therapy for 2 years. My wife is also an occupational therapist, so she helped out with things at home. I was put on Adderall and Vyvanse to try to, bring my cognition level up, my mental, ability, because once I got to a certain point in the day, if I had done too much, I would get a massive headache and I'd have to lay down, sleep it off till the next day. So those things helped somewhat, but in the end, I stopped doing therapy after 2 years, and it never fully resolved. I still had these issues. Now I could go longer in the day before, these headaches would come on, the dizziness would get worse, and the motor tics would appear, which added to the depression and anxiety that I had because I couldn't control it. And before that, my balance was always perfect. I was a martial artist when I was in my, from like 8 years old until I was 18 years old. I was a junior black belt. I was a brown sash in Kung Fu. I was on demonstration teams. I was on sparring teams, and my balance was impeccable. And now I'm at this point where I can't even close my eyes or I'd fall down. So that definitely added to the depression and the anxiety for sure. So, but yeah, after that 2 years, I decided enough is enough. spending all this money. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. So it remained that way until I started the carnivore diet.
Wow, that's incredible. So yeah, let's talk about that transition. You described kind of finding the information about the carnivore diet and the people that you discovered that from. How much convincing do you feel like it took you to say like, okay, this sounds crazy, cutting out vegetables and all this other plant stuff that I've been fully on for several years, going completely 180. Like how much convincing did you need to be decide to like fully commit to that?
I didn't need much. So once I saw that video from Dr. Ken Berry that was basically endorsing this way of eating, that was enough for me. But I'm not one of those people that needs variety. I'm not one of those people that is very, like, ultra conservative. I'm somewhat of a risk taker. So those two elements combined, I think, made me just jump all in immediately, because it's like, well, what else do I have to lose, right? He's talking about eating beef, butter, bacon, eggs for 30 days. Like, anybody can do that, right? So it didn't take much to convince me, because I knew if eating that way wasn't doing anything for me, I could just go back to eating nutty bars, right?
Yeah, good point. Did you have any transitional difficulties? Some people talk about like going from raw vegan to, eliminating all of the vegetables. You're going to have oxalate dumps or, things of that nature. Was the adjustment period difficult for you?
It wasn't that difficult. So initially, I had sort of fatigue. I didn't pay attention enough to the steps with Dr. Berry. I just basically paid attention to, hey, this is okay to do. Joe Rogan said it was reversing his thing. I'm just going to eat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs and go with it, right? So I didn't really understand that I needed to probably supplement with some electrolytes and things like that, and maybe potentially transition slowly, depending on my digestive system and how fast it's able to transition, right, to being fat adapted and or have consuming all this fat. So I definitely had points where you don't, like, as I say, don't trust a fart in the first 30 days. So definitely in the bathroom for 3 weeks, and it got to the point where I was like, man, do I continue this or do I not? And I pushed through that fourth week, and I'm glad that I did, because everything cleared up at that point. My digestive system got back to normal. At that point, I started going to the restroom maybe every 4 days, which was totally opposite from vegan, where it was like 3 times a day. And your body doesn't want that stuff in you. So that's why it's trying to get it out. But so I think I answered your question. I kind of got off on
Yeah.
a rabbit trail there.
No, no, no. That was perfect. Yeah. And you mentioned, doing a 30-day trial. And you also mentioned earlier with the vitiligo, I'm saying that right, is that took about 5 months before you noticed any progress there. What were some of the main motivators in the in-between space that let you know that you were on track and you were feeling better? Like what things were you noticing besides the digestion feeling a little bit better after about 4 weeks? What other benefits did you notice?
Oh, wow. So I had osteoarthritis as well, basically every joint in my body. And that went away literally in 3 days.
Wow.
I had plantar fasciitis during this time of raw vegan. So I guess that could be one of the things that didn't really come about, plantar fasciitis, until I started eating that raw vegan diet. So it was roughly the same time I started that as when I started having issues with my feet. And it was super painful. I mean, it would get to the point where I could only stand for like 30 minutes, and then I have to sit down for 2 hours. Super, super painful, $300 pairs of shoes, wearing boots at night to try to stretch that fascia. And none of it really helped, right? So literally by the third day of eating carnivore, that started to feel better. I'm like, what is going on here?
Wow.
So by the fifth day, completely gone. And it has not come back since. And I'm, 2 years and a few months into the carnivore diet now, and it hasn't come back whatsoever. So that was one of the things that was kind of blew me away right off the bat. And that gave me enough motivation right there. The joint pain and the plantar fasciitis going away almost immediately was enough for me to go, there's something to this, right?
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. My wife does a lot of tissue work with people and works on creating more space in fascia tissue in particular. And first of all, it's amazing, the work that she does, and she can help get people out of pain. But when you change the diet, it's so much easier for people to feel that and actually clear that up. So it's one of those things that, like, yeah, if you're new to carnivore and you just heard that for the first time, you'd be like, I don't know about that. But if you've been in this world for long enough, you've heard those stories so many times about the osteoarthritis and the plantar fasciitis and all that stuff, just getting so much better so quickly. That's absolutely amazing. And there's not many, if any, other topics that I know of that people get so fired up about. They learn about it for themselves. They end up, fixing a bunch of their own problems, and they have this desire, this innate desire to share. And we mentioned, podcasting. We also mentioned filmmaking. What has been your journey from, having a profession? You've got a day job, you've got things that you're doing, you're very busy, but also wanting to use a lot of your spare time to share this message. Why has that been so important to you?
That's a really great question. So, one of the main motivating factors for me is, and I think I should have touched on this earlier, is at that 5 month mark with noticing the reversal of the vitiligo, all of the complications and issues that I had with my brain injury were 100% resolved. At that point, I noticed, man, I'm not getting these motor tics. My head's not jerking anymore. I don't have any issues with balance anymore. My balance from when I was a teen is back, and it's absolutely incredible. And in that time, from being in martial arts until now, exercise was a 4 letter word to me. I just wasn't going to do it. I didn't feel like it. I didn't have the energy to do it. I felt horrible, joint pain, all these issues going on. I just didn't want to do it. Now I've got the energy to actually to do these things. So there's just been such a profound change in me, healing wise. It does seem like a miracle, and I want other people to experience that. So that's my main motivation. And this has to be shouted from the rooftops, that just simply changing your lifestyle, what you eat, can have such a profound effect. Not only what you're eating, but mentally, and your daily routines and things like that. Making sure you're getting enough sleep and sunlight and stuff also definitely help to manage your stress levels and boost your health. But yeah, that was the main motivating factor for me to start a YouTube channel. Kerry Mann from Homestead Hal, who I'm partners with on the Healing Humanity Project, he encouraged me to start a YouTube channel. And I thought, you know what? Let's just do it. Even though I'm a professional photographer, I've been an introvert my entire life. I'm on this side of the camera, right? Not on this side of the camera. You're not getting me on camera. And that's why there's so few images of me when I was much larger, because I was self-conscious. I knew how to stay away from the camera, and I didn't want to be on camera. And now it's just been so incredible, the results that I've had simply by changing what I eat. But really, I want to say, bucking the system, right? So, I don't really adhere to the societal standards. I kind of do my own thing always. And that goes in the political realm and everything else. I don't go with the flow. And this way of eating fell right in line with that for me. So that's another motivating factor for me to go into this realm. And because of that, and coupled with that, I'm able to, I think, share or show my passion for this way of eating, right? To help others. And it's so simple. I don't have anything to sell. Just basically shop from this section of the grocery store and not this one, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Wow, that's really well said. I love the passion behind all of that and the drive to be able to create that. And part of that is the podcast. I love that you have the YouTube channel. For me personally, it's a lot easier to consume things in audio only, kind of formats. And so I'm so glad that you decided to put Carnivore Today out there. And I'll tell you the same thing that I told Carrie. Like, as much as I absolutely love talking to the experts, to talk to Dr. Chafee, to talk to Dr. Hampton, to talk to Dr. Baker, like, it's such an honor to speak with some of the experts in the carnivore diet and the people that are working on this clinically. But I am also almost a little bit even more excited to help share the stories of people where their stories are undertold, or they're just discovering this for the first time, or their story is not getting out there. And I felt like in your podcast, you've done such a great job of highlighting the stories of everyday people. It's just such a joy to listen to some of your episodes just over and over and over again of the everyday people. So I just wanted to compliment on you on that and talk about what your experience has been like, not just to, work with, of all the experts in the field, but also to share the stories of everyday people as well.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. And likewise, you're at like umpteenth million episode level, right? So, and the same thing, you do an absolutely phenomenal job on your podcast. But yeah, you're right. The doctors are really great to have a relationship with, and kind of get the sciencey type stuff out there for those folks that need it. But I really enjoy hearing directly from people, how changing the way that they eat. And really, and I wouldn't even care if it was a vegan diet. I just love that somebody has taken the initiative. They've grabbed the bull by the horns to take control of their life again, and they feel much better because of it. So it just so happens that most people that I come into contact with, it's because of the carnivore diet. It's absolutely made major changes, not only in themselves, but in their families, and impacted their communities as well. And some of these folks have gone online, and they're impacting people around the world. And it's important to me that, like you, that we get these stories out there and share this message with anyone that we can, as far and wide, because it's just, it's not mainstream. It's not something that's going to be sponsored by government or institutions. And actually, they may actively speak against that. But, ultimately, it's up to us, from the ground up, to spread this message to help others.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. Our episode that we're recording today will drop immediately after a follow-up interview that I did with a woman who posted in the World Carnivore Tribe page on Facebook in January, when she and her family were just starting on a carnivore diet. She just introduced herself, and I wanted to capture the story of a family as they were getting started. And we just did the follow-up yesterday after about 4.5 months, and the whole family is still very much on board. They've lost a combined almost 100 pounds and reversed so many issues. And it's the same kind of thing. Like, they started a YouTube channel. They're not prolific content creators, and they don't have tons of followers right now, but the drive to share is there, and they just want to talk about it and share with others because they notice the energy, and the kids are doing so much better with attention issues, and they all feel better. And it's so cool to capture the stories. And again, I just can't thank you enough for capturing that on the podcast. You do that really, really well. And it's so important to not only understand the science and the mechanisms behind all of this, but also to share those stories around. And you just, for being on the other side of the camera most of the time, you're an absolute natural. You do a great job, and I would recommend that podcast to anybody. So again, just a great job. You do an amazing job on that podcast, and I can't wait to look forward to episodes in the future as well.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate that. And, I want to add to that I was never inspired to speak to anyone about the way that I ate when I was on a vegan diet. It wasn't until eating this way that I had the depression and anxiety went away. All these things that happened to me is just so unbelievable in my mind that I just have to, shout it from the rooftops and tell people. And it's like Pastor Jimmy in the documentary Healing Humanity. We filmed him, and he said, carnivore isn't a magic pill, but it almost is. And I truly believe that.
Well said. Well said. That's amazing. I mean, the saying goes, how do you know if somebody's a vegan? They'll tell you. It definitely seems more true for carnivore. I don't know if I've converted any Costco receipt checkers at this point, but it's almost 100% of the time I'll make some comment about a plant-free shopping cart that I'm pushing through and getting my receipt checked. So I don't know, again, if I've converted anybody, but yeah, it's hard to shut up about it, and the desire to share is definitely there. And you mentioned the movie. One of my highlights from the Hack Your Health show that we went to last year, where I met Carrie for the first time. The show itself, it's tricky because there's so many things going on at the same time. Like, there could be an hour where maybe there's not much that's super compelling going on. You've got your main stage, you've got your two other side stages. And so you can, go to the vendor section and you just like cruise around and find people. And it's really social and fun. And if nothing else, you can eat delicious food. Eat who's the one that always makes the meat? I can't believe I'm forgetting them. Do you remember the Pedersen Farms? Pedersen Farms is always
Yes.
cooking
Yep.
up like bacon and sausage, and like I'll walk by and have a sample and walk by and pretend I've got a mustache and try to have another sample. Smells so
That's
good.
awesome.
And then some hours, like you're competing with like two or three other things that are really awesome. You might miss something on the main stage because you want to go to a breakout session or a panel discussion. And I made it a point to be sure to catch all the different movie premieres that were going on. There were two or three different ones that were being shown. The Healing Humanity one was not one that I'd heard about, but I wanted to make sure that I took time to be there. And oh my goodness, that was one of the most memorable hours that I spent at that conference. I went there with my buddy Tony to see this premiere that you guys aired. But not a dry eye, I have to tell you. It was very, very emotional to see. Before we get into the content of Healing Humanity, can you tell us the backstory of how you got involved? How did you and Carrie get hooked up and decide to cooperate to make this happen?
Yeah, it's a funny story, actually. So, I've always been, I like to help people. Yeah, I'm a servant at heart. I own a few businesses myself, so I am a business owner, but I understand, you have to be a good employee to be a good owner, in my opinion. And, Carrie was so inspired by his health transformations, especially in the mental health area, that he was shouting it from the rooftops, and he already had a YouTube channel with like 70,000 subscribers, right? A homesteading channel. And he's like, yeah, guys, I'm on this carnivore diet. I seen this 30-day update video. That was the first video that I seen. And then I subscribed to his channel because I had already been on the carnivore diet for, I think, 2 or 3 months at that point. So, I'm consuming as much content as I possibly can. Here comes this crazy guy talking about, it's healing everything for him, and he's just so excited about it. So subscribed, and I think it was a couple months later, he and Emma were in a video, and they said, we need to do a documentary on this way of eating. He doesn't know of anything that's focused around the carnivore diet. So at the time, he started the carnivore diet documentary, and I just randomly reached out to him. I didn't have a YouTube channel at that point. I sent an email to him, and I'm like, this guy's got 70,000 plus subscribers. There's no way he's going to respond to me. And what I told him is like, hey, I'm inspired also by this way of eating and the healing that I've had. If you need any help, I'll sweep the floors. I'll do whatever I got to do. Here's the experience that I have. I'm a professional photographer. I shoot for 3 different wire services, and I shoot sports like on all the stages, whether it's the national championship football games, IndyCar, NASCAR, F1, NHL, MLB, NFL. I mean, all of them, all of the professional sports. So I photographed most of those events on the biggest stages, essentially in the world, and I was pretty successul at it. So I had an eye for what to actually capture. Now I've never actually done at that point video. So I'm like, I was honest with him. I'm like, hey, I don't do video, but I know lighting. I know, how to create something that looks good. And he responded back within the day and was like, yeah, sure. Let's do something. So that's basically how it started. And
Wow.
now looking back, my channel's at 15,000 subscribers. I don't get a ton of email coming in. So now I know, well, he was able to see that actual email. Now, if he had like 1 million subs or 10 million or something like that, and I sent him an email, he probably would have never seen it. But
That's kind of how those things work out. Even if he would have gotten so many more emails, and maybe he did, who knows? But it tends to kind of work out that way. And you guys were just a perfect fit. You kind of alluded to this already, but I wanted to ask you the cross section of where your skills kind of helped with the project and what things you needed to learn to be able to effectively tell the story as well as you did. Because I don't want to miss this point. Healing Humanity is shot to a very, very high standard where it can be picked up on certain platforms, all the big platforms like Netflix, for example, not guaranteed that that's going to happen, but you guys chose to do a very, very high quality version of what you did. So what things translated really well? You mentioned things like lighting, and obviously taking still pictures is not the same as video, but you know something about it. But what other things were you surprised to learn about with that kind of journey with movie making?
Yeah, that's an exciting one. So, obviously I had what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. I definitely felt like I had that because I hadn't done video in the past. And the reason I didn't do video work was not because I didn't want to do it, but the file sizes are massive. Like I already had, like, I have well over 5 million images in my image library on a huge NAS drive. And it's like, if I do
Wow.
video, I'm going to need like 5 times this much, right? So that's one of the reasons why I didn't get into it. So it was once we decided that we were going to start doing this thing and I was going to get involved being a videographer, I started taking courses, documentary courses, filming courses, and just consuming as much of that content as I possibly could. You know, you learn more from doing the actual thing than you do like going through a course, but at least the course can give you guidelines, of things that you don't really need to pay attention to and things that you do need to pay attention to as you're putting it into practice. But, it's being a sports photographer for so long at high level and photographing some of the most emotional moments that have ever happened in sports and being prepared and being ready for that, I think has definitely translated into capturing those same moments, but in a smaller way. Not as much, it's not as grand, when somebody gets emotional and what you need to focus on and things like that. So, but I definitely think it helped me for sure to be able to capture those moments.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you're describing taking courses on your own so that you could effectively tell the story. This is all motivated by a dietary change that you applied just over 2 years ago. Again, it's so incredible to hear the lengths that people go to try to tell these stories once they find this way of healing. I think that itself speaks for itself. And the small bit of the movie that I've seen so far, I can tell you guys did an amazing job. Again, what we mentioned earlier, capturing the experts and explaining the science and explaining the mechanisms, but also capturing the story. So what has it been like for you to experience both of those things, talking with some of the most world-renowned experts in the carnivore diet and also finding people that really would not have been found if it weren't for you guys and your work?
But that's a good question. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I don't even know any other way to describe it. It's surreal. I look at the doctors, the experts in the space as people that I look up to. Not because of their position in life, but because of what they've done to help others, right? These people, they have put their careers essentially on the line, and some of them have actually lost their career because of speaking up about this way of eating. So, for that, I have mad, mad respect for these individuals. Just absolutely selfless, willing to help others, and I respect and look up to them for that. And it's been a really awesome experience being able to capture them on film for this documentary and the individuals also. So there's this one level of experience that you have with capturing somebody's story on a podcast, but it's a whole different thing when you're in an intimate environment, and especially for me as an observer, right? So I'm capturing Carrie interviewing these folks, and I'm getting to watch the movie like in front of me. And there's many times that I've been emotional myself, and just because it's so moving and real, these experiences that these people have had, especially in the area of mental health and depression, and how it's absolutely lifted eating a carnivore diet. There was like Tammy Peterson, for instance, when we went and interviewed her, she shared her story, and I was in tears. I was crying. Like tears were flowing down my face and hitting my hands while I'm holding the camera, and I'm like, "Don't move, don't move, don't move." So, those that see her segment in the film, that's sort of a little bit of behind the scenes, but it's touching to be actually there and filming it. It's an honor, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's amazing, dude. Do you try to hide your emotionality? Like when you're crying, do you try to like hide it a little bit? Like I'll cry during Inside Out when Bing Bong dies, and I'll try to like hide it from my wife, like pretend I'm like itching my face. Like
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, guys don't cry, right?
exactly. Yeah, I watched Hamilton last year live for the first time with my dad, and I'm pretending like not to cry during the emotional moments. Like, who are you fooling, dude? Just own it. Be a
That's
crybaby. It's
right.
fine. Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so I wanted to ask you. I've got kind of two or three names in mind when I think about the amazing stories you've captured. But before I ask you about specific people, are there any stories that really stood out besides Tammy? Besides, I believe it was a pastor that you mentioned earlier. Are there any other major stories that really stood out to you that you'd like to share with us today?
Probably the main one, and this is not, to say that anybody else has less of a story, but there's two that come to mind. Maggie in Canada, she's been a carnivore for over 65 years. She's 83 years old now, and she kicked our butts up there in Canada on a ranch. Like she's a full rancher. Like she's out there doing the work. And before we went there, we were on a pre-production call, and she said, "Hey, make sure you guys bring your work gloves." Carrie and I looked at each other like, what are you talking about?" She didn't really elaborate on it. And once we got there, we found out, hey, there's people coming to the middle of nowhere in Canada, and we need their help to put this fence up. So we put up roughly a quarter mile of fencing for
Wow.
cattle on her ranch, and man, she put the screws to us. Like she was working circles around us, lifting up sections of this fence, 15, 16-foot long sections of fence by herself, 20-pound buckets of feed for the cattle, two in each hand, just walking around like it's nothing. And mind you, she's 83 years old. They only eat one time per day. They eat one meal a day, and it's basically fried fat, eggs, bacon, steak, roast, whatever it is that they're having. But it's this one giant meal. And she told us, she's like, guys need to finish up because you ain't eating anything else today. So make sure you get your fuel in there. So that was a very memorable thing to go and film that and experience that. Not only because we were in a side building that didn't have running water and it had an outhouse, so that was a
Wow.
different experience. It was fun, but not used to that. So that was Maggie, and then Jeff DeProsperous was another one that we were not prepared for. So God rest his soul. Jeff is now passed, but what we captured with Jeff is sure to inspire those as a cautionary tale for, you need to pay attention to what you're eating now, your lifestyle now, so that you don't end up with challenges like Jeff had. But when we went to film him, we were not prepared for what he had in store for us. He had like all 5 days mapped out. We're going here, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And I'm telling you, this guy was like the Energizer Bunny. He had just got off chemo, and this guy had seemingly like at least two times as much energy as what I had. I'm like, dude, well, you need to slow down so we can actually like back up our footage and then move on to the next thing. It was boom, one right after another, after another, after another. And that was just really inspiring to me because most people that you see that have terminal cancer, you know, they look like they're basically the Walking Dead, right? You don't see somebody that's thriving. You don't see somebody that has muscle mass. I mean, he's working out. He looked great. He was in great physical
Did.
shape. Yeah, and it was just it was an honor and a pleasure to spend that time with him before he passed away. But he even mentioned himself that he was terminal and he only had a certain amount of time to live, and the carnivore diet was helping him to thrive while he was here. So, but that's probably the two most memorable trips that we went on.
Well, thank you very much for sharing those. Those are the two that I had in mind as well. I'm so glad you brought up Jeff, and like you said, God rest his soul. Um, yeah, I believe if I have the numbers right, that he basically 10x'd his time. He was given 3 months. He ended up leaving 30 months, if I've got the numbers right. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's one thing to live longer. Like my mom was diagnosed at 39, 38, 39 with breast cancer. She made it to 46 before she passed away of cancer. And but I mean, the thing is, her quality of life was not that great from what I could tell. Like the treatments were just terrible. We were on a low fat, high carbohydrate diet, lots of sugar, lots of, skim milk and wheat bread and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's one thing to extend your life, but it's another thing to extend your life with the capacity to enjoy your time and spend time with loved ones. And you definitely got a sense of that with Jeff. And so I'm very glad that you guys captured that. Unfortunately, it still had a tragic ending, but probably always was and would have been a lot shorter with a lot more suffering. So I'm glad you brought up those stories. I have to say, man, it was so bizarre. I'm listening to Dr. Chafee's podcast. I'm hearing about this rancher in Alberta, and she's talking quick and, full of energy. I'm like, wow, this, 45-year-old is like really quite healthy. And then I'm like reading the title and it's like, wait, she says she's 82. What is going on? And so that was one that I had to switch from audio only to pull it up on YouTube. I couldn't believe it for myself. Like she's talking too quickly to be 82. There's no way. And you're watching this video and seeing this woman who looks like she's in her like 50s, like crushing it. It was amazing. That was one of the like top 3 podcasts I've ever listened to in my entire life. Like crazy story. I'm glad to know that she made you guys work for it up there.
Oh, she made us work for it. That was definitely one of the most memorable things, not only in the film, but in my life. Like I've
Wow.
never experienced anything like that. And to see that if you eat a proper human diet for your entire life, this is what's possible. She said she felt like she was middle-aged. Like who in their 80s says they feel like they're middle-aged? She said, we're just getting started. Like,
And you believe her. You're right.
yes.
That's crazy. Wow. Well, I love that you captured those stories. You did it so artfully. So kudos to you guys. What is the state of the movie? Where are we at? Is it going to be released anytime soon? What else needs to be done? Like where we are as far as healing humanity and the release.
So we've set a tentative release year of next year. We are wrapping up filming. So in June, we're filming Dr. Baker and Anthony Haydick. So Anthony has stage 4 GIST cancer. He found out about the carnivore diet from Jeff DeProsperous. So as part of Jeff's story arc in the film, uh, the conclusion isn't just going to be, Jeff passed away, but his legacy moves on, right? Because he chose to speak about it on YouTube, that
Wow.
Anthony is now thriving, right?
Wow.
Not only that, Anthony is potentially bringing a lady that has the same type of terminal cancer that he has, was raw vegan, and is now kicking butt on a carnivore diet. So it's gone even yet another level deep. So hopefully we're able to film her. So we are in the final stages of filming, and we're going to start really hitting it hard and heavy with the actual edit. We've already started getting some of the segments narrowed down, some of the footage to like 40-minute segments, but for each individual, and then we have to pull out of that the best and what we believe we're going to put in the actual film once all of those are done for those individuals. So and then we begin marketing and distribution, and we're looking for a release date of next year sometime.
That's incredible. Wow, congratulations to you guys. And I seriously, dude, full body chills when you told me about Jeff's legacy and how it's going to carry on and how that story is going to be told in the movie. That is so absolutely beautiful. We're very much looking forward to that. And yeah, from what I've seen of everything that you guys have done, it's absolutely incredible work and very beautiful. And yeah, we're all very much looking forward to that. So congratulations on all of that. I'm going to take a complete deviation away from what we've been talking about. It's totally selfish. I just have to ask you. I live here in the Salt Lake Valley. I've just experienced a dream that I didn't even know I could have. We have just had our first season of an NHL team in Utah. We just got renamed to the Utah Mammoth. We spent the year as the Utah Hockey Club. I got to go to 16 NHL games. I played ice hockey since I can remember. I fell in love with the sport with a minor league team here. I will fight anybody on this. This is objective science that the NHL postseason, the Stanley Cup playoffs, is the best playoffs on all sports. That is scientific, objective. You mentioned photographing the NHL. Can you tell me about any like standout moments that you've gotten to capture in your life as far as the NHL has gone?
Yeah. So, you say that the NHL playoffs are the best. And from my perspective, it's interesting you say that because all the sports are challenging to capture, right? Like auto sports, you got cars that are crashing like right next to you. So you like this added level of danger, right? There's just as much danger in basketball and this big, 7 foot tall person like diving on top of you, breaking bones or whatever. Uh, but by far the most challenging sport to photograph is NHL hockey. Those guys are so fast and powerful, and when you're ice level, you have a small hole in the glass
Yeah.
that you're able to photograph through, and you only get a narrow like view uh, before you're obstructed by glass. So trying to like anticipate, it's just a major challenge. I could go into all the minutia about it, but it's the most challenging sport for me to capture, and because of that, it's my favorite. Plus, it's indoors, and it feels like super air conditioning, which is great.
That is nice.
But
Uh,
some of the most memorable moments would be, I live in Ohio, so it's more of a home-based thing when you shoot for the wire. So I shot, I don't even know how many seasons of the Blue Jackets, but they were in the playoffs with the Capitals, and Ovechkin and comes in, and he's a beast, and one of the most memorable things has actually nothing to do with me capturing his jubilation on the ice and getting a double truck spread in ESPN magazine of that. That was great. But the craziest thing that ever happened was, so you're not supposed to stick your lens outside of the photo hole, right? Like it's
right.
a major no-no because these guys are going so fast that yeah, they could hit that and injure themselves, and that'd be bad. And then you would go, you would never be back, and you'd probably be poor. But a friend of mine actually stuck his camera outside the hole, and Ovechkin hit it, right? And during a timeout, Ovechkin came over and seen him with the lens outside the hole again, and he actually took his stick and whack hit the end of the lens. And Matt couldn't
Oh,
say anything. He couldn't say
wow.
a word. Yeah, it broke the glass and everything.
That's amazing.
It didn't
Oh, that's
shatter
a,
on the ice. It just broke internally in the lens. But
yeah,
Mac's like,
that's
"Oh
toast.
crap!" So, but he didn't come back. That was that
Wow.
was that was crazy.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I love that. Yeah, we got to see Ovechkin here when the Capitals came to visit, and just to see him at 39 and breaking the scoring record was just incredible. And he's a specimen. So thank you for that diversion. That was very selfish of me. I just love talking hockey and
Sure.
love the NHL. Adam, this has been an amazing conversation, and I know how busy you are and how much sacrifice you took to do this show, and how much you're sacrificing of your day to day life to tell this story. And again, it's not just that you're telling the story, you're telling it well, it's beautifully done, it's getting out very quickly. To consider a project like this, I know lots of other film projects that have gone on for years and they still have not been released, and you guys are working very diligently, doing some crowdfunding but also sacrificing your time, your money to capture it well, to the point that it's such a high quality, that it could be on some of these major platforms. So I just so much respect you and your work, and very much thank you for taking time to be on our show today. Where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Well, thank you for the kind words. If you want to find me, you can go to at Carnivore Today on all platforms. You can find me there. You can go to carnivoretoday.com. I'm actually getting ready to launch that website here within 4 weeks, redo it. It was launched previously, but I shut it down because I really want to do it well for people and have it the all the data organized in a very good fashion so that people can get in and get those quick wins and get the information that they need. So you can sign up for the newsletter there so that you know when we actually launch, and we'll give you a carnivore diet guide as well. And then on the movie side, healinghumanity.movie is the web address for the movie, and also at Healing Humanity Movie on all platforms except for X, and on X it's at HH Documentary.
Got it. Okay, perfect. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. And like I said, Adam, so much respect for you and Carrie and all the work that you're doing. Your story is amazing, and the desire and passion to share that story is just so apparent. So again, I know how busy you are. Thank you so very much for taking the time to be on our show today and for taking the time to make this movie on behalf of everybody in the low carbohydrate, the ketogenic, and the carnivore diet. We're all so grateful for all of you and your work. So thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for taking the time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you. And thank you for having me on, Casey.
Absolutely. It was such an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.